Soon. Okay, so we are live. Fight commentary breakdowns, guys. This is Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Kickboxing, Lethwei legend Cyrus Washington, and shout out to Quan Kicker Micah for connecting us. So, Cyrus, welcome, man.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Cyrus, let's just get started. I think a lot of people know you as the guy who, freaking went and competed in Lethwei and beat a bunch of people. But of course, you have a long, awesome fight martial arts history. So, let's just get started. Did you get started in Taekwondo, or was this something else?
So I started in a karate. I want to say it was Kempo or Shotokan karate when I was about 5, and I was
Mm-hmm.
just training with a friend of my mom's at that time. I was pretty young, but I was very much into martial arts from watching the martial arts movies. You know what I'm saying? The kung fu movies, and things like that while growing up. And some years later, I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I got into Taekwondo. Then I did that for just over 3 years straight, and I got my black belt. Then I got into some boxing. I actually did some boxing before Taekwondo, and I just started kind of dabbling in a lot of other stuff as well.
I see. I see. So, very much you kind of got exposed to a lot of things together.
Yeah, definitely throughout my life. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot, like some silat, some savate, some jeet kune do. I love martial arts. Like I'm a martial artist. I like
Mm-hmm.
martial arts. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Was there kind of a style that really attracted you initially, or kind of love it all?
Um, well, I won't say that there was a style in particular, but because I was very much more so drawn into kicks, Taekwondo and I were just a great connection. Like it was heaven sent. You know what I mean? It was definitely meant to be, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's talk about the training then. Was it kind of like old school, like it was like sensei, kind of like he'll have a whip and hit you and stuff like that, or was it like very chill training?
Nah, it was very old school.
Mm-hmm.
Very old school. Yeah, you
Yeah.
get hit and had to like clean the mirrors and things like that at the end of class, depending on your rank and your age. Very old school. We trained like professional adult athletes at a very young age. He pushed us, and that's a big reason, not the sole reason, but a big reason why I'm still able to push myself the way that I am now today. Like I always knew you had to train and work hard to get better. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Um, when did you have your first fight?
My first competition, it was definitely the one, like maybe the first 3 or 4 months after getting into Taekwondo. So I was about 10 years old, and we had an inter school tournament where we were competing against our teammates, and there was a couple of different schools that came, but we compete against them and our teammates or classmates, and that was my first fight around 10. Yeah,
Wow,
and I got
wow, yeah.
second place.
So
Second place.
nice, nice. So basically, you're one of those. You grew up sparring. You grew up in competition. So we see so many examples now of people who've never sparred when they get to black belt. You were not one of those. You were like you knew from day one. This has to be a martial art. It's not just dance.
Right, that's right, that's right. Martial art, martial being the key word for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So okay. So you had your taekwondo. When did you get your black belt in that?
I was about 13 years old when I got my junior black belt because when you're underage, you couldn't get at that time we couldn't get our actual black belt. Being with the
Mm-hmm.
Quan WTF organization. So I didn't really get my black belt until I was 18, really. But I had my junior. I was technically qualified to be a black belt at 13, but I couldn't get the actual black belt that was black until I was 18.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And that shows the integrity of your school, right? Because they are honest with the kids. It's like, okay, you're at that level, but you're not at that level also. So it's good.
Right, right. Yeah, the
Yeah.
maturity, you have to have the maturity to be a black belt, and somebody that's not 18 probably won't have that mindset. And some that are 18 probably aren't really at that mindset to be a black belt too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I'm just looking at Wikipedia. It says you trained the World Taekwondo Federation version of Taekwondo.
Yeah. So there's the World Taekwondo Federation version, but our actual style of Taekwondo was Quan. And some people aren't very familiar that there's different styles of Taekwondo, and I don't know nowadays if that's still a thing, I guess. Because I know Jun Ree, who was in the Game of Death with Bruce Lee, he has his own style of Taekwondo. And there's some other styles of Taekwondo as well, like Tang Sudo and things like that. And I trained Cheng Quan, which is WTF style. Yeah.
I see. I see. Okay, so you got to a certain level in Taekwondo. What made you then decide, okay, let's start going into other promotions. Let's start doing Muay Thai. Let's start doing kickboxing, etc.
Wow, so seventh grade, my teacher, she asked all of us to write down what it was that we wanted to be when we grew up, And although I like basketball, I like other things, but I wrote down kickboxing. Um, so for me, it was a natural progression. I got distracted in my later years of training when I was around 18 and 19, so I got into some trouble. I went away for a while, and after I got home, it was just tunnel vision from there, and I started fighting amateur more consistently in kickboxing and Muay Thai, and then I finally turned pro.
Um, so tell me about that first amateur fight against what a kickboxing or Muay Thai. Tell me about it. What was the feeling? Because at that point you already competed in Taekwondo and stuff like that. But was it kind of a different experience? Was it different emotions? Was it like, oh, this is a guy with a different style. Maybe I have to change my game plan. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, it was very different. So my first fight with head contact was actually boxing. Once I got home, I did boxing. I did amateur boxing where they give you the whole passport with your picture in there and stuff like that. So I did the USA boxing, and I ended up knocking the guy out in the first round.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like which made me happy, but it also made me think back like when I got other competition experience. So maybe my level was a little higher than his level was, even though we were both 0-0. You know what I'm saying? As far as boxing and things like that. So I did that, and then I did some IKF tournaments. I did some IKF Muay Thai tournaments. International Kickboxing Federation Muay Thai tournaments. The first International Kickboxing Federation Muay Thai tournament I did was in Chicago. I want to say this was 2000 and had to be 2005 because I turned pro in 2006 or early 2006 maybe, but I ended up getting second place in that tournament. I just ended up letting the guy outpoint me. I had bloodied his nose and things like that with jump knees and stuff, but I just let him hit me because the kicks weren't doing too much. And in Muay Thai, if you're not blocking the Muay Thai way with the knee coming up to the inside of the elbow, then those kicks are counting whether you're covering up or not. So he ended up getting the win on me in the finals.
I see.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So uh in Wikipedia it also says that you train in Kendo, which is really cool.
Kendo. No, Kimpo, I think is what they meant.
Oh, so that's a Wikipedia error. Okay,
Yeah.
I will correct that.
Kimpo.
I've never corrected Wikipedia, but
Yeah.
I guess this is gonna be
like
my
to
first.
do Kendo, I would love to do some Kendo, and learn that, but yeah, no.
Wow. Yeah, so Kempo, man, whoever
Yeah.
wrote this article on Wikipedia, you guys got that wrong. That's hilarious. Okay, so all right, you did the Muay Thai, the kickboxing stuff. Let's talk about Lethwei. What made you decide to go into this crazy Burmese thing with headbutts? Tell me about that.
So what made me do Lethwei? All right, so I'll start off in the beginning. A friend of mine who at the time I was offered the fight, we just were both two foreign fighters fighting on the circuit in Thailand. I was living in Thailand at the time. And one day he hit me up on Facebook or he called my little Nokia cell phone or something, I don't know. And he was like, hey, I have a fight for you, and it's in Myanmar. And I'm like, all right, cool, I'll do it. It's just the way things were. Like we were fighting every couple weeks in Thailand, you know. But I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Then he went to explain the rules to me. He's like, okay, there's headbutts. They don't wear gloves, and they can do groin kicks. I'm like, all right. I'm like, hey man, I'll try it. I'll do it, you know. So the organizers of the fight, who are actually Thai, they lived in Mae Sot, which is on the border of Myanmar and Thailand. We all got to the airport. We flew over there. In the press conference before the fight, they said because I was inexperienced in Lethwei, and they didn't, and I know that they just didn't think that I would last a couple rounds, I'm sure. But because I was inexperienced in Lethwei, they said that no headbutts would be allowed in my first Lethwei fight. No headbutts. Even though if you watch the fight, he's headbutting like a lot, you know. And this fight was against Sawman Ngai, I think is the way it's spelled, but I'm not sure. I'm sure that's not the way you pronounce it. But anyway, yeah, that's what got me in the Lethwei. Yeah, my friend hit me up one day, and he had already done a couple fights, so I went out and I gave it a go.
And so, you fought him to a draw. So, from my understanding in Lethwei, if it goes the entire fight, right, and nobody knocks the other guy out or nobody forfeits, then it's just a draw. So basically, you lasted when all the people thought the guy would beat you.
Yeah. So I lasted to the end. I actually ended up knocking him out. So you have to knock the guy out completely to where they can't recover within the 5-minute timeout, or you knock him out twice. So I knocked him out one time. He recovered, and because he stuck his head outside of the ropes during the fight to not get hit, I was awarded the title, even though he ended up finishing the fight.
Wow.
So for them to not lose face, it was only fair, you know? Because, I mean, that's kind of cowardly, you know what I mean? To stick your head out of the rope so you can't be hit, you know? So I understood that, and I didn't disagree, so yeah, I took the title.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's crazy.
The fight's on my channel. You will see.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely look at it, man. We'll definitely look at the commentary breakdowns. You have a great channel, by the way. So viewers, for people who see this later, because again, this was a impromptu live stream, but for viewers who see it later, Cyrus's channel is going to be in the description. I'm going to put it in the pinned comments too. So yeah, Cyrus, we'll look at your channel a lot. We'll like break down the fights and stuff like that. It's awesome.
Cool. I'm my channel better now too. You know, I just downloaded as Quan Micah. He told me to download and subscribe to Adobe Premiere Pro. So I'm learning that right now to just kind of make my channel look a little better right now because my videos are very raw. Yeah. So I'm doing that.
A little bit of editing. I always tell people a little bit of editing and then investing in sound, right? Because I even got a new mic because I had another mic before and the sound quality wasn't as good. So I got a new mic too. So like sound and then a little bit of editing goes a long way.
I'll keep that in mind for sure, man. Yeah, because I want my channel.
And I can show you this mic too. There's another version of this mic that's smaller that you could probably get started with, and it plugs directly into your computer.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in between that first Lethwei match and then the second Lethwei match, you spent a lot of time kind of doing other stuff like Muay Thai, right? Because there's like 4 years between your first and second Lethwei match. So, like in between that time, you did a lot more Muay Thai.
Yeah, a lot more Muay Thai and some kickboxing, definitely. So I did a lot more fights in China, Malaysia, and Thailand for the most part, you know. I mean, I've even fought in Australia and things like that, but the fights that I was doing or the places I was going to mostly was China because China was very active in the kickboxing scene.
Yeah. And China loved to kind of pit Westerners against their fighters. It like really just it fit for like the Chinese way. It's like, oh my God, you know, because at that time in like the 2010s, China was still thinking like, yeah, Westerners, superior nutrition, superior whatever, right? Superior combat sports genes. If our fighters could beat them, it shows how much more skilled our fighters are. So they would love to pit kind of like foreigners against Chinese fighters.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So one funny fight, funny is not the right, but fun, but maybe funny too, that we could probably talk about is you versus Yi Long, because everyone in
Oh
China
yeah.
has their thoughts about Yi
That's
Long.
right.
Everyone knows he's not a real monk. That's just for branding. But when Yi Long first came out into the Chinese fight circuit, people actually thought he was a monk. I thought he was a monk.
Yeah,
Sin,
everyone
they
did.
called
I
it.
did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about the Yi Long fight.
So man, you know what? This is a fight I haven't spoken about. People don't ask about that fight, So I fought Yi Long. First I want to say when I fought Yi Long, I thought that I won the fight, where the fight was a draw. I thought it would end in a draw. From what I remember is he was doing a lot of low like calf kick sweeps. He did that a couple times. Knocked me off my balance for the most part. It was a pretty much a firefight for the most part, man. I remember it was very back and forth from what I can remember. And I mean, he's still a good fighter, strong fighter. You know what I'm saying? I give him respect in that aspect for sure. And it was fun, man. It was a fun fight. I had taken it on like a 2 week notice because he was supposed to fight someone else, and I can't remember what happened. But all I know is Dennis Warner. He was the president of the WBC a while back, and he for Muay Thai in the U.S. And he had offered me to fight on 2 weeks' notice, and I took the fight and went out to Vegas, fought Yi Long, and it was a good experience. Good experience.
So, tell me about when you decided to take that second fight in Lethwei.
All right, so when I decided to take the second fight in Lethwei, I hadn't heard from the organizers of the fight. It had been a long time. I don't know how come we lost touch, but we did lose touch. And I was living up in New York at the time. I was training at Seton Gym with Aziz Nabi. He's the main or head trainer there, the owner of the gym. Um, and I just remember getting a message on Facebook from the daughter of Papa Chilawat, who was the head organizer of the Lethwei fights for the Thai nationals. She messaged me on Facebook, and I said, "Yeah, I want to do it." So I ended up getting a sponsor to help pay for the flight to get out to Thailand, and I went out and made it happen.
And
And I
go
fought
ahead.
Toto
Go ahead.
May. Yeah. You want to know more about the fight? Because it's some funny. There's some pretty funny or interesting parts to it, even in the dressing room. So I don't remember there being a press conference, or there wasn't a big press conference like the first time I had fought. Um, and I think this time when I came back, they didn't know that I had already fought there before, years before. They didn't figure that out until the second fight with Toto May. So this first fight, we're sitting in the dressing room. I had went into another room by myself to just go pray and just bring in some just good energy, good karma and everything. And came out of the room, and Toto May was sitting on the floor maybe 10 feet away from me, surrounded by a bunch of his homeboys, and they were watching the video, looking up at me and looking back down at the phone. I'm assuming it's the highlight video or something, and they were laughing. And he was laughing, they're laughing, I guess, making fun of whatever it was that they found funny in the highlight video. And that was that. And then oh man, her name wasn't Dao. I forget the daughter's name. She came and told me, she was like, Salat, they're watching video of you. They're watching video of you laughing, laughing. I say, okay. She said, you not no afraid, no fear, you know. I'm like, no fear. I mean, I'll go out, I'll do my best. And long story short, I ended up KOing him in the third round with, I guess, the kicks that he was laughing at from the video. So.
And tell me about what happens after you win a fight in Lethwei in Burma. I guess it's called Myanmar now. Is it like very friendly afterwards? Like you guys go out and have dinner, or is it kind of like you guys all just go your separate ways?
So after fighting Myanmar, that second fight that I fought Toto May, that particular fight, the promoter, Toto May's coach, my cornerman, and the organizers, they all surrounded me and escorted me from the ring because they thought I was going to get attacked. That was just kind of, I was a little clueless to the fact that I could be attacked, but I don't think I got attacked because when he got knocked out, the crowd was so silent that they were all in shock. They were literally in shock. There wasn't a noise to be made, you know what I'm saying? Other than me, like, hey, get some ice for him, try to resuscitate him, wake him up. He was out for 45 minutes, I think they said, before we fought the second time. They told me how long he was out. Yeah, I would have probably not fought again after that. You know, that's like a coma almost, you know what I mean, if you can't be woke up for that long. But yeah, they escorted me from the ring and they told me to just be quiet, look forward, and let's just get out of here. But after that fight, things were fairly more calm after a fight. There was none of that or anything like that. Some of the nationals in Myanmar started to like me, kind of embrace me as a fighter, and things were a bit more friendly. And just out and about on the streets of Myanmar, I mean, the people were friendly, you know what I mean? Friendly and humble, and it's an okay place for me to be, you know, to me anyway.
Wow. So, and then eventually you and Tun Min had a third fight too. So tell me about that.
That third fight, so that third fight ended very quickly. I don't really know what was so different about the way his punches felt. I mean, I don't know if the wraps were more tape or what, but I remember getting hit by him this time. We had already fought 2 times before that, you know. The difference in the second fight were just the headbutts, not the punches at all. Punches weren't really a factor in the first fight either. But all of a sudden in this last fight, the punch, just 2 punches were very different, very heavy, you know. And I don't know why. I don't know if there was something in there or what. I had went alone to this third fight. I was there by myself. I didn't even have a corner man. Some young boys from Myanmar were cornering me, so I didn't have anyone to watch his hands when they got wrapped. But yeah, he hit me about here, and I remember my legs, they wanted to go out, and I caught myself, you know, and he went to throw a low kick. I dodged the low kick by just lifting my leg up, and I countered with a low kick, and then all I remember is I think he kind of put his hands out here, and then he hit my orbital. I know my orbital was broke. My eye closed right away. I couldn't see anything from this side anymore, and I bowed out. I said, "Yo, I can't keep fighting." It was the first round, you know. Maybe it was the third round. I'd have kept going because we didn't have that much time left, you know. But like the first round, like that's it, you know. And what I got from the crowd and just from the people, the spectators, is that they wanted to see someone die. And I think that someone they wanted to see die was me. You know what I mean? Because it's like, hey, my eyes closed. I can't see any hooks, any high kicks, anything that's been thrown low or anything. I can't see any of that once your eyes close like that. You know what I mean? And they didn't care. They were very infuriated that the fight had ended so quickly. They threw glass bottles, cans, all sorts of stuff into the ring, you know. And I don't want to make people think that everyone from Myanmar is that way. You know what I mean? There's nice people there. There's very good people there. But some of those people in that crowd that day, they were very furious and rageful for sure.
And I think that's actually a really good question to ask is, what is the usual crowd like that attends a Lethwei match?
The usual crowd that attends a Lethwei match isn't that much different from a crowd that attends a Muay Thai fight in Thailand, you know? they're very enthusiastic and very much into the fights. You know what I'm saying? Even the ring announcer, he's still kind of in the fight during the fight. If you watch the fights, when a shot's landed and they feel like it's a good, clean flush or hard punch, kick, or whatever, you hear the announcer yell out, "Wow, wow, wow," constantly throughout the fight, revving the crowd up. Everyone's very much into the fight versus Thailand. When shots land, the people in the crowd are yelling, "Away, away, away," you know. So yeah, it's very similar to Thailand, or Thailand's very similar to Burma, for sure.
I see. I see. Okay, so you had that. First of all, just like reflecting on that third fight with Tutu Min, I think it's a great lesson for everyone. Make sure you have people kind of check the other person's gloves, man. I know
Yeah.
Ramsey Dewey
Watch
had
you
a
rap
story
your
like
name,
this too.
and they watch you rap yours for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like Ramsey Dewey got got like a fracture on his skull also because the other guy didn't wrap his hands right. So man, I hear these stories. It's
Oh,
just heartbreaking.
wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's sad, man.
yeah, yeah,
That's pretty
exactly.
serious, damn.
Yeah. So it's like, especially you're already like putting your entire body at risk, right? So it's like at least make sure that there's no extra risks. So that's a good lesson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, definitely it is.
Wow. So you had the third fight with Tutu Min, and then what made you decide? Okay, let's fight some more in Lethwei. What was the kind of decision? Because the next one is an often talked about fight that you had with David Duke. So tell me about kind of that 2 year period. What made you decide to do more Lethwei?
Um, so one thing that made me want to do more Lethwei was, to just say it bluntly, lies being kind of sold to the enthusiasts or spectators, fans of Lethwei. You know what I mean? There was I guess, a lie going around that Leduc was the first Western champion, and I think the first Westerner to I think even to fight Lethwei. You know, the only credit I give to him as far as something like that is to kind of bringing it more so into the limelight. I guess I wasn't very good at doing that, just because I'm just learning how to work editing software. You know what I'm saying? So as far as me bringing a martial art into the light, like, it shouldn't be on my shoulders solely. But that was the main thing, was to kind of clear up the lies and just show people, like, no, I have been doing this while this guy was still asking for the keys to his mom's car. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in Thailand fighting, and in Myanmar fighting. You know. So yeah, I did that, and yeah.
And when you guys decided to set up a match, was it kind of the people in Burma contacted both of you guys, or did you two contact each other to set up the match?
No, we didn't. We didn't speak about it. We definitely didn't speak about it. It was the people in Burma, and yeah, it was the people in Burma for sure. Yeah.
I see. And so to prepare for that first match,
Uh-huh.
what was your kind of preparation process? Because at this point, Leduc had already had, I think, a few fights. Yeah, he had quite a few for this, and you've had a few fights. So I assume like you probably did research and everything on him, and kind of like went through training camp to prepare for this fight.
Yeah. So preparation for that fight. Trying to think, where was I training at? I was in Texas, so I was in Houston at the time. And I went out to Thailand. I want to say I went out to Thailand about a week or 2 weeks before the fight. And then I just went and did the basic Thai routine. So I went out to Thailand, did the basic Thai routine of 6 miles in the morning, come back, jump rope, train, things like that, to make sure I was getting in a really good shape, you know. Yeah, that was pretty much it as far as that. And I ended up taking a trainer with me from Thailand. I went out to Phuket Top Team to train, so I take a trainer from that gym with me to corner me for that fight.
I see. I see. So tell me about when that day of the fight, when people entered. Was it a bigger crowd than usual, or was it kind of the same number of people attending as all the other Lethwei fights?
I think that show was pretty big. It was pretty big. I won't say it was any bigger than all of the fights. Maybe it was bigger than some of them, but it wasn't bigger than all of the fights for sure. Yeah, I mean
Cool.
there was a number of foreign fighters on the card that day versus Burmese fighters or fighters from Myanmar.
I see. Were you guys the headline fight?
Yes, we were the headline fight. Yeah, we were the main event. Yes.
Wow.
I think so.
Wow.
Yeah, because he had been the champion. He was already the champion at that time. So I ended up fighting him. Yeah, he was the main. We were the main event. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, that match lasted 5 rounds. It was fought to a draw. Tell me about kind of your thinking, your kind of strategies during those 5 rounds.
My strategy was just let him be aggressive, let him come forward, and he'll run into something. He's gonna run into something I throw, and when I throw it, I'll have the intention to finish him and knock him out. I ended up throwing the spinning heel kick, and it did land, but because I was slightly off balance when I threw it, it just didn't have the oomph of power that it would normally have to finish a fight. But yeah, if you watch that fight, you'll see that I catch him right across the face, but I was off balance. So instead of my heel catching him, it was like the bottom of my foot slapping him. So yeah.
I see. Yeah. So it was fought to a draw, and then immediately in both of your minds, was it like we got to have a rematch, or was it kind of like you guys sat on it for a little bit and then you decided let's have a rematch?
Yeah. I mean, immediately. I mean, even now, I want a rematch now. So yeah, immediately. Yeah, I want. Yeah. I don't know what was going through his mind. I don't. You know what I mean? I don't know him that well. And I mean, he calls himself king, so I don't know if in his mind, if he felt like he had done enough to where no one would ever challenge him again or something like that, or if I would never challenge him again. I mean, if that's what he thought, then he was wrong, and if that's what he's thinking now, he's wrong.
I see. And so, in between your first match and your second match with Leduc, you got injured, right? From my understanding, you had a really bad injury.
Oh yeah. So I was working security. And the whole reason I was working security was because a fighter that had asked to fight me 2 times and backed out 2 times ended up not fighting. So because he had backed out, so I ended up going into work that night to work security. If I was going to take that fight, I wouldn't have been there, or if he was going to take the fight, I wouldn't have been there. So it would have been avoided. And I mean, there's no regrets on my part. For the most part, I'm healthy and still strong. So I was working security that night, and some guys got into it. One guy pulled out a gun, and he shot me in my stomach and my leg. One bullet hit my femoral artery, and the other bullet just kind of went through my stomach and out my leg. So it did a lot of nerve damage, and I got a graft in my leg for the artery to keep the blood flowing. And yeah, recovery from that's been what it's been. But I mean, I don't give up. It's up and down for sure though. Because some days I'm like, yo, I mean, some days I feel like I'm making great progress, and then other days it's just like, damn, like I'm taking a couple steps back, But all in all, I'm here. I'm happy and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's especially because one of them hit the femoral artery, so it was good that you survived because a lot
Yeah.
of blood was probably lost, right? Wow.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the crazy thing. It was just internal bleeding. So my leg went from like a normal size of this to like it looked huge, man. It was crazy to look at my leg and see like how big it had gotten from the blood. But yeah, thank God, man, I'm here.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Seriously, it's definitely got to be thankful, and I'm glad. I like you said, every day just keep getting better, and then just keep going. And the fact that it didn't prevent you from keep training and keep fighting, that's also amazing. That's so inspiring. You love what you love, and you're gonna keep doing it.
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah, nothing's gonna stop me. As long as I'm alive, I'll keep doing it in some way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's something I wanted to emphasize to viewers because I didn't know about this. Like there during the second fight in Wyoming when Leduc and our man Cyrus fought, Cyrus was still recovering. He wasn't 100% from his wounds, right? So that's something that viewers have to understand. Like
Yeah.
it's that yeah, and the fact that you still went and did a freaking Lethwei match is so inspiring.
Yeah, yeah. And there's no excuses. I took the fight and I'll take another fight. The thing about nerve damage is they don't know how long it'll take or if it'll ever come back. So I may never get the full 100% function of the muscles in my leg, but I just gotta keep going.
Was there any kind of like special training you had to do before the second fight with Leduc because you had a little injury? So were you trying to like train other things, other strikes, other things in your body to kind of like compensate a little bit?
So I was training with Michael Chase Corley, a good friend of mine over at Heritage Muay Thai, and we worked my boxing a lot. Um, and the whole thing about in the fight, I ended up breaking I don't know if y'all can see my finger. So I broke here and I broke my knuckle like early in the fight. So it was like boxing's out the window now. Which I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't want the fight to stop because of my hand or knuckle being broken. But yeah, that was the game plan, was to land some heavy punches. That was part of it anyway.
I
Live
see.
and learn, learn from it for sure.
Yeah. And I guess that's a really good question for people curious about Lethwei is that do hand, knuckle, kind of wrist fractures happen a lot in Lethwei because you're only kind of wrapping with ropes, you don't have all the other protection?
Um, so I see a lot of guys get hand fractures from fighting Lethwei. Not all the time. And I can't say that they get those fractures because they're not conditioning their knuckles and hands and things like that. Because I condition my knuckles and my hands not all the time, but consistently enough that the density of my bones should be strong enough to sustain hard punches. But they happen; those injuries still happen.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So, okay. I think a good kind of question is, so what is next for you, right? We understand you definitely want to do another rematch with Luke, but any other plans? Kind of do you want to focus more on teaching now? Do you want to do Muay Thai also fights, or tell me about your future plans?
My future plans. That's a good question. That's a very good question because I've been so busy, just expanding my business. I'm thinking about opening my own school next year finally. And then I'm putting a lot of effort into because I don't want there to be just a main focus. Whatever it is I offer there, everything is going to be. I'm going to put the equal amount of energy into every martial art that I instruct or teach or have at my school. Um, so that's definitely one of the things that I'm focused on right now is opening a school next year. Then another thing is, yeah, definitely I want to do more Muay Thai fights. I love Muay Thai. I want to do Lethwei fights and some boxing and MMA as well. I have been offered an MMA fight. It was against a more or way more experienced opponent for MMA, and we just didn't take that fight. It just wasn't a good idea at the time anyway. Once I get more MMA experience, then all right, like yeah, I'll take that fight, but not now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like even though you're so good at the striking sports, right? Got to be careful with anything that involves grappling, especially if they pair you up with experienced people. It's almost like they're almost like setting you up for something, right? You definitely got to be careful with things like this.
Yep. And yeah, you said it. You hit it right on the head. That's the same thing Chase was telling me. He was like, hey, man, this guy's really good with jiu-jitsu. he's taller and longer than you are. If it goes down to the ground, even though I have some grappling experience, I'm a blue belt, and I've had my blue belt for a while. But it's not a good fight, so we didn't take it.
Yeah. And I think another good question that I think is on a lot of viewers' minds, because you have the shirt, the West Chase Team Muay Thai. Tell me about that.
West Chase Team. This is just an old shirt of a gym that I was teaching at. Part of my business is doing contracting, so I will work with other gyms and teach at their gyms and things like that. So I did some teaching over there at that gym for a little bit.
I see. I see. And this is actually a good question too, since Quan Kicker, aka Micah, connected us. How did you meet Quan Kicker?
Wow, man, Quan and I want to say we met just on YouTube back a while back before YouTube is what it is now. And then we met out in person. In person, we met out in Thailand. Um, we did some collabs out there. He's a real cool guy. We connect and gel really easily, you know. But yeah, we met out in Thailand before he did he did a Muay Thai fight out there.
I see. Wow, that trip that Micah took to Thailand seems to have been like one of the coolest things ever, because when I went live with him, he told me about some other cool people who are now pretty big on YouTube that he met during that time too. So it's like, wow. I think every fighter who likes combat sports should go to Thailand at least once and train a little.
Yeah, for sure. Have you been out there before, Jerry?
I have not, but the trip's coming because I work a lot with CFC, Southeast Asian Fight Championships. Okay. So, like I need to go out there to kind of meet the people, Nick Lee and stuff like that. And I've helped out Full Metal Dojo and stuff like that. So, like I definitely need to go there, kind of like establish the face-to-face relationships.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. So, Cyrus, I guess here's another question for you: is there any fighter? I mean, besides Leduc, of course, but is there any other fighter you really want to have a match with, or like anyone you're just like, I always want to spar with this person?
Fighting. I fought Nikki Hoskin back in the day, a while back. 2011 is when we fought. Actually, I like to rematch him. Other than that, I mean, he's probably about the only one. Now sparring. I mean, I love to spar any of these top level MMA guys in the UFC. You know, just move around with them and see what it's like, from John Jones to Francis Ngannou and I mean all those guys. You know what I mean? Just to move around with them and see what's up. You know.
And I'll put a link to your website in the pinned comments too. But tell me about the website. How did you come up with pain is my teacher and stuff like that? It's a pretty cool, memorable type of motto. So tell me about it.
So I guess for me and my experience, most people learn from pain, we learn from pain, you know what I mean? I think that's a big reason why parents spank their children, you know what I'm saying? So they learn from it, they don't do it again, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's failure in school, failure and life, failure in business, usually you learn from that failure. That failure hurts, and because you learn from it, it's based solely because it hurts so much, you know what I'm saying? So pain is definitely a good teacher, I'm actually in the process of getting a website for my company, my LLC, Dynamite Muay Thai Martial Arts, which will probably be the name of my school. But yeah, man, pain is my teacher for sure. Like everything that I've learned from every lesson in my life, or almost every lesson, has involved some sort of pain for sure.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. It is exactly like you said. Sometimes, as much as it sucked to go through it, once we get through it, we kind of are kind of happy, right? Like, sure. The example I give people is I had a lot of neck issues, right? But through that, I learned how to make my neck stronger. I learned after jiu-jitsu, after Muay Thai, how to balance out the upper back and stuff like that. So like everyone's always like, wow, you're always like worried about your posture. I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to feel pain again. I want to be able to take a hit and not like have like neck problems or head problems, you know, like pain was a good teacher as much as it sucks, man. It sucked to have to experience some of that stuff. So yeah.
That's right, man. That's right. And that's an important thing too, is that you actually become proactive, take the initiative, and make whatever it is that's the problem better. You know what I mean? You get stronger from it. Whereas some people nowadays, man, they just kind of sit on the couch and they'll just allow that problem to sit there and fester, and it'll compound itself and get worse. You know?
Yeah. Like I got some friends who I'm always sending them exercises because some of them have long necks like mine. So some of the same issues I experience. So like, Jerry, thank you so much for always helping. I'm like, it doesn't take time for me because this stuff is on my mind all the time because pain is my teacher. It's almost like you let that PTSD kind of guide you, right? So you're like, I don't want to ever, I'm proactively never going to get into that situation again.
That's right, man. You prevent it and avoid it. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think another really good question is, Black Dynamite is your name. How did you come up with Black Dynamite?
So Black Dynamite. So all right, I was given this name back in like 2009. I want to say, yeah, it had to be around 2009 from the movie Black Dynamite with Michael Jai White. And there were two friends of mine, two girls, a French girl and a girl from Saudi Arabia. They were neighbors of mine, and they had saw the movie Black Dynamite. And one day I walked out of my apartment, and the girl from no, she's from France actually. She said, "Hey, Black Dynamite," and I turned, and I'm like, "Who's Black Dynamite?" And she was like, "Hey," she gave me a thumb drive. She was like, "Hey, you need to watch this movie," and I watched it, and yeah, it's stuck ever since.
That's awesome, man. You know, growing up, the only thing I got was Jackie Chan, but the problem is there already was a Jackie Chan, right? But the cool thing about Black Dynamite is like not everyone knows who that is, so it's like you can kind of own that, right? Like if I call myself Jackie Chan, people will be like, "What are you posing?" Wow. So I guess another kind of cool question for you is you have kids, you have a family. So tell me about how do you balance that with like the fight game and everything?
So so at the moment, or not the moment, not for the past couple years, my ex and I, we've been separated. But at the time when we were together, I mean, they were involved in my career as much as I can have them around, you know? And that was the best way for me to balance it, you know what I'm saying? So with fighting, training, teaching, and things like that, I'll have my little ones right there on the sideline with their mom, you know what I mean? And as long as she were cool with it, they were cool with it, and that's the way things were, you know? I made it a family thing, you know?
I see. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's best to get them involved, right? It's
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's a win-win because they learn from it too. They get some discipline, some fitness, things like that. You know.
Yeah. I guess a question that probably a lot of viewers would have is just that if they want to get into martial arts or they want their kids to get into martial arts, what is some advice you can give them? You know, being someone who's taking the path, gotten to such an elite level.
The first piece of advice I'd give to someone looking to get into martial arts would be to first make sure you have an open mind. You're learning something new that's probably completely out of your comfort zone, so have an open mind. And right along with having an open mind, do research on who it is that's going to be your instructor or teacher. Don't just go to anybody that just wants to take your money and they're going to show you some things that they don't even know if they work if they're effective. And they're going to charge you, take your money, and then you go spar or you have to defend yourself one day and you're like, oh wow, this shit isn't working. It's not helping me. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely do your research. But those would be the two main pieces of advice. Have an open mind and do your research on who it is you're going to be working with, for sure.
I see. Yeah. And actually, for viewer Tom Framness, who's a very long time subscriber, I did not forget about you. So I'm going to ask that question that he posed, which is, you've done Lethwei. What is your thoughts about headbutts, both like used strategically and how to defend against headbutts and whether headbutts should even be allowed? So let's talk a little about that because, everyone is always thinking about headbutts now that everyone knows about Lethwei.
Yeah. My thoughts on headbutts is because headbutts are a part of Lethwei, so they should definitely be used. I don't have a problem with headbutts in that aspect. I mean, that's a part of Lethwei. That is Lethwei, headbutting. Blocking headbutts. Once you get in that close quarters fighting range, that clinching range, you need to make sure that hand goes across their face and jaw, and they can't headbutt you anymore. It's just that simple, Now, if you're attempting to do something else like elbow or something like that, that might restrict you from throwing your elbow unless you're throwing short elbows from having that hand across the jaw. But yeah, man, that's the number one way to defend the headbutt.
Do you, once you got into Lethwei, did you incorporate any kind of headbutt combo or practice any kind of headbutt variation combo with your existing striking, or was headbutt mainly kind of something you just have to defend against?
So if you watch my first fight with Toto May, you can see that I would throw the headbutt from clinching range. I would clinch and headbutt, and I did that maybe once or twice during that fight. Headbutting isn't a natural thing for me, just because with Lethwei being one of the last martial arts that I've become familiar with and trained in and fought in, it's just not one of the natural things for me to do when I'm in close quarters, because I've trained elbows in Taekwondo as well. A lot of people don't know that there's elbows in Taekwondo. Very short elbows, but elbows in Taekwondo. So for me, when fighting in close quarters, elbowing was more natural versus throwing the headbutt.
Wow. So I think we went through the questions that I saw viewers had.
Okay.
And let me know if there's anything else you want to talk about. But I think this was a great first conversation. And I think for the future, Cyrus, we can do more interviews. And of course, I'll bring on people to kind of like look at some of the stuff on your channel. And like, seriously, just like I tell Micah, if you ever need me to kind of like share a link about your stuff, totally down to do it, man. Always down to help out cool people. And like, it was a serious joy talking to you. It was really cool.
Hey, man, it was great for me too, Jerry, man. Yeah, man, I appreciate any of that, man. All of it. And definitely, man, we'll do this again,
Yeah.
For sure,
And
man.
For viewers watching, there could even be potentially one day me, Cyrus, and Micah Quan Kicker might get together in like one room and do some videos.
That'll be really cool. That'll be mad cool, man. We should do that for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. So for viewers, I'll put all the links to stuff we talked about in the pinned comments so you guys can follow and share this later once this gets spread to more people. So Cyrus, I'm going to stop the broadcast now. We can keep talking a little after this. But for everyone watching, this was Cyrus Washington.